Imagine walking down a quiet street at night, the world around you hushed, the air thick with an eerie stillness. A figure lingers just beyond the glow of the streetlights, watching, waiting. His presence is unsettling, yet familiar, as if he has always been there, drifting through the edges of history, unnoticed. He moves without a home, without a past, without an end. Some say he bears a mark, a warning from an ancient curse. Others whisper that he has seen the rise and fall of empires, that he has wandered for millennia, never aging, never dying. His name is Cain, the first murderer. Cursed to roam the earth, untouched by death, forever searching for something he can never find. But what if he never stopped walking? What if, even now, he is out there, still watching, still waiting? This is the history of a curse, of a man condemned to live forever, at least, that's what some believe. Could it be possible? Did Cain's punishment go beyond exile, trapping him in an existence that defies time itself? Or is his fate far less mysterious, lost to the pages of forgotten history? What are the arguments for and against these theories? Let's find out. Imagine a man who has walked the earth for millennia. A man who has watched empires rise and fall, who has seen the world reshape itself time and time again, yet has never known peace. His face changes with the ages, his name lost in the echoes of time, but his burden remains the same. He is a cursed wanderer, a restless soul doomed to roam the earth, never able to rest, never able to die. Some say he is a myth, a relic of ancient scripture. Others whisper that he still lingers in the shadows of our world, unnoticed, forgotten, but very much alive. His name? Cain. The first murderer. The man who struck down his own brother in jealousy and rage and was sentenced to a punishment unlike any other in history. But the question remains, did that punishment include eternal life? And if so, is he still out there, moving among us in secret? Most people know Cain's story, at least, the version found in the book of Genesis. He was the firstborn son of Adam and Eve, the older brother to Abel, and the first person in recorded biblical history to commit murder. Jealous of God's favor toward his younger brother, Cain lured Abel into the fields under false pretenses and killed him. The Bible does not tell us how, perhaps he struck him with a rock, perhaps he used his bare hands. But the result was the same, the first act of bloodshed. And so, when God confronted Cain and asked where his brother was, he uttered the now infamous words, "Am I my brother's keeper?" But Cain did not escape justice. Unlike later biblical figures who would be struck down or consumed by divine wrath, Cain was given a punishment that, in many ways, was worse than death. He was cursed to be a restless wanderer on the earth, forever displaced, unable to cultivate the land, unable to belong anywhere. And to ensure that he would never find release, God placed a mark upon him, one that would prevent others from killing him. The Bible does not specify what this mark was, only that it was a warning: anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over. A mark that ensured he would be left alone, untouched, forced to live with the weight of his crime for the rest of his days. But here is where the mystery begins. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that Cain eventually died. While later figures like Noah, Abraham, and Moses all have their deaths explicitly mentioned, Cain simply disappears from the narrative. We know that he traveled east to the land of Nod, that he found a wife, that he built a city. But after that? Nothing. No record of his death, no conclusion to his story. It is as if he simply faded into the shadows of time. And this absence has led to centuries of speculation. What if Cain never died at all? What if his punishment was not just exile, but eternal wandering? The idea of an immortal Cain has fascinated theologians, scholars, and storytellers for generations. Some believe that his mark was not just protection from murder, but a divine curse that prevented him from dying altogether. Others claim that Cain found a way to survive, adapting to different eras, moving unnoticed through history. And then, there are the more outlandish theories, those who believe Cain still walks among us today, disguised as a drifter, a homeless man, or even something far more powerful. Could he be a secret ruler, pulling the strings of world events from the shadows? Could he be the true face of ancient myths like the Wandering Jew, or even cryptids like Bigfoot? Or is it possible that the mark of Cain did something even stranger, transforming him into something beyond human, a creature doomed to walk the earth forever? Cain's story is one of blood and consequence, an early lesson in divine justice, but it is also one of ambiguity. The punishment handed down to him is clear: he is cursed to be a restless wanderer upon the earth, unable to cultivate the land, doomed to a life of exile. To answer whether Cain's punishment was meant to last only a lifetime or extend beyond, we must examine the biblical texts. In Genesis 4 verses 10 to 12, after Cain murders Abel, God declares his sentence: Cain is cursed and driven from the ground, which received his brother's blood. Cain murders Abel. God declares his sentence: Cain is cursed and driven from the ground, which received his brother's blood. God tells Cain that when he works the ground, it will no longer yield crops for him, and he will be a restless wanderer on the earth. This passage establishes the weight of Cain's punishment: banishment, toil, and endless wandering, but it does not specify the duration. The language of the punishment implies permanence, but whether it extends beyond a normal human lifespan remains unstated, leaving room for centuries of speculation. Then there is the infamous mark of Cain, which has been the source of endless debate. When Cain laments that his punishment is too severe, fearing others will kill him, God responds in Genesis 4 verse 15, "Not so, anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over." To ensure his safety, the Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one would kill him. The nature of the mark of Cain is debated. Was it a physical symbol, a supernatural aura, or a metaphor for divine protection? More importantly, did it mean Cain was invulnerable, or simply that people were too afraid to harm him? The text never explicitly states immortality. After receiving his punishment, Cain departs to the land of Nod, east of Eden, where he finds a wife, fathers children, and builds a city named after his son, Enoch. Here, his story fades into the background, unlike other major biblical figures. We are never given an account of Cain's death. There is no record of him growing old or mention of his final days. In the genealogies that follow, his bloodline continues, but Cain himself vanishes from the biblical narrative as abruptly as he entered it. The mystery remains: was Cain omitted from later texts because his fate was unimportant, or did he disappear from history because he never truly died? If we take the Bible's silence at face value, the simplest explanation is that Cain did die at some unknown point. Cain's death could have been by old age, accident, or other means. But to others, the silence is suspicious. In a book that documents the deaths of many figures, why was Cain's fate left unresolved? Was it intentional, or meant to leave open the possibility of eternal punishment? Did later generations obscure Cain's fate, allowing the myth of an immortal Cain to take root? These questions have fueled centuries of debate. If Cain's punishment was eternal, he could still be out there, walking among us, bearing the mark of his crime. If Cain was simply left out of the biblical record, he may have met his end long ago, his body lost to time like many before him. The truth lies somewhere in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered, as the mystery of Cain's fate continues to intrigue and provoke thought. For all the mystery surrounding Cain's fate, the simplest explanation is often the most overlooked: he died like any other man. Despite the eerie silence of the biblical text regarding his death, several factors strongly suggest that Cain's story, while shrouded in ambiguity, does not stretch into eternity. From natural causes to divine intervention, from the inevitability of time to the great flood that wiped out humanity, there are many reasons to believe that Cain did not escape mortality. First, there is the argument of natural limitations. While Cain's curse doomed him to wander, it did not explicitly make him immortal. There is no indication that God intended to extend his life beyond a normal human span. Like all men of his time, Cain would have been subject to the wear and tear of existence, disease, hunger, exhaustion, and eventually, old age. The mark placed upon him prevented others from killing him, but it did not grant him invincibility. He could have simply wasted away over the centuries, succumbing to illness or starvation, his fate lost to time because it held no theological significance. Then, there is the problem of the flood. Genesis 6 describes a cataclysmic event designed to wipe the world clean of its wickedness. The flood was meant to destroy all who were deemed unworthy of survival, sparing only Noah and his family. If Cain was still alive during this time, would he not have perished along with the rest? The Bible makes no exceptions to the destruction. No mention is made of any lone survivors outside of those aboard the ark. Some might argue that Cain was already long dead by this point, and that is why he is not mentioned in the story. Others counter that if he had truly been cursed to wander forever, then perhaps he found a way to endure even the flood. Apocryphal texts and rabbinic traditions also propose various endings for Cain. The Book of Jubilees, an ancient Jewish text, suggests that Cain met his demise in an ironic twist of fate, killed when his own house collapsed upon him. This would not only serve as poetic justice, but would reinforce the idea that his curse did not extend to immortality. Likewise, the Book of Jasher, another non-canonical text, claims that Cain was accidentally slain by Lamech, a blind descendant of Adam, who mistook him for a wild beast while hunting. In this version, Cain's death reinforces the notion that while divine protection may have shielded him from human vengeance for a time, it was not an eternal safeguard. Additionally, the function of Cain's mark suggests it was meant only as a deterrent, not as a permanent shield. The idea that it prevented people from killing him does not inherently mean that Cain could not die, it only means that divine retribution would befall anyone who tried. It is entirely possible that by the time Cain had settled in the land of Nod, started a family, and built his city, God's punishment had served its purpose. If Cain truly perished like any other man, then why does his story still haunt theological discussions, folklore, and even modern conspiracy theories? His death is never explicitly recorded in the Bible, leaving a void where speculation has flourished. To some, this absence is intentional, proof that Cain's punishment was not merely to wander for a lifetime, but to roam the earth indefinitely, a cursed being who cannot die. If true, this would make Cain one of the longest living entities in human history. But how could such a thing be possible? And if he still exists, where is he now? One of the most popular theories is that Cain's curse extended beyond exile, it made him immortal. The idea stems from the ambiguity of the mark of Cain. Many interpret this mark as divine protection against violence, but others believe it was more than that. Some texts suggest that Cain's punishment was meant to be truly unbearable, and what could be worse than an eternity of loneliness? If his curse was never lifted, Cain could still be out there, doomed to wander the earth, watching civilizations rise and fall, forever an outsider in a world that no longer remembers him. This theory explains why his death is never mentioned, because it never happened. Another idea, though more speculative, suggests that Cain survived the Great Flood due to his divine protection. If God's mark ensured that no one could kill him, then perhaps the floodwaters could not claim him either. Some versions of this theory propose that Cain found refuge in some remote location, surviving as the world was submerged, only to emerge once more in the new era of Noah's descendants. Others suggest that Cain was transformed by the flood itself, altered into something non-human, something eternal, cursed to drift through history unseen. If this were true, he would be an anomaly, a remnant of a world long erased. There are also theories that place Cain within the fabric of human society, hidden in plain sight. Could Cain be the eternal drifter, the nameless wanderer that myths and legends speak of? Some have connected him to figures like the Wandering Jew, a medieval legend of a man cursed to walk the earth until the end of days. Others speculate that he has taken many names throughout history, changing his identity with each new age. If Cain still walks, he could be anyone, an old man who never seems to age, a recluse who disappears whenever someone gets too close, a drifter who never stays in one place for long. Perhaps the most bizarre yet captivating theory is that Cain is not just alive, he is powerful. If he has lived for millennia, could he have used that time to accumulate knowledge, influence, even control? Some believe Cain has risen to the ranks of the world's elites, using his vast understanding of human nature, strategy, and survival to position himself in the shadows of world events. Imagine a man with thousands of years of experience, skilled in warfare, diplomacy, deception, and even forbidden knowledge. Could Cain be a hidden ruler, a guiding force behind history itself? And then, there is the strangest theory of all, Cain as a cryptid. Some claim he has become something entirely inhuman, twisted by his curse into a monstrous being that lurks on the fringes of civilization. The theories about Cain's continued existence are as varied as they are unsettling. Whether seen as a cursed vagabond, a secret ruler, or something altogether monstrous, one thing is clear: his story has never truly faded. Cain's story is one of the most haunting enigmas in biblical history, a man condemned by divine judgment, marked so that no one could kill him, and cast into eternal exile. But what makes his tale so enduring is not just the crime he committed, nor the punishment he received, but the lingering uncertainty surrounding his fate. Was his sentence meant to last for a single lifetime, or did it stretch beyond the boundaries of time itself? Did Cain fade into history, his bones buried and forgotten? Or is he still out there, walking unseen among us, a relic of an ancient world? The arguments for Cain's mortality are strong. The simplest explanation is that he lived out his days, grew old, and died, just as any man would. The Bible's silence on his death may be nothing more than an omission, an unimportant detail lost as Scripture shifted focus to new generations. If that is the case, then Cain is long gone. He would have perished before the great flood, or been wiped away with the rest of humankind when the waters swallowed the earth. His punishment, while severe, was not one of eternal wandering, only temporary suffering until his natural end. But then, there is the alternative. The unsettling possibility that Cain never perished. That his mark was not just a deterrent but a divine brand, sealing him in an existence where death could never reach him. That when the flood came, he found a way to endure. That he has spent thousands of years adapting, changing identities. If so, what would such a life look like? Would he be a man trying to redeem himself, seeking peace that will never come? Or would he be something darker, a shadow moving through time, collecting knowledge, manipulating events, growing into something beyond human comprehension? Perhaps the most chilling aspect of Cain's story is that, if he still roams the earth, we may have encountered him without even knowing it. A nameless drifter. A homeless wanderer. A figure in the crowd who never quite belongs. A man whose eyes hold the weight of ages. Some claim he is hiding among the forgotten, suffering as he was cursed to do. Others believe he has mastered his exile, wielding his agelessness like a weapon, a being who now walks among the powerful, moving history to his will. And then there are those who whisper that he has become something unrecognizable. A beast of the wilderness, a cryptid, a ghost. The truth, as it stands, remains elusive. Cain is either a cautionary tale, a story of guilt and divine punishment that ended long ago, or he is an open-ended mystery, a riddle woven into the very fabric of time. His existence, whether ended or ongoing, forces us to reflect on deeper questions. What does true punishment look like? Is living forever a blessing or a curse? And if a man condemned to wander the earth truly walks among us, would we ever be able to recognize him? For now, all we can do is wonder. But the next time you hear footsteps behind you on an empty road, or catch a glimpse of a solitary figure watching from the shadows, take a moment. Look closer. Because if Cain is still out there, then he has been walking for millennia. And perhaps, just perhaps, he is watching you.